Part 5. The do's and don'ts of paraphrasing, quoting and plagiarism. There are delicate filaments that separate and connect paraphrasing, quoting and plagiarism. Academic literacy professionals teach these terms as if the differences are quite stark. But in real life, the movement between paraphrasing and plagiarism, quoting and plagiarism, can be as little as a couple of squiggles, and we happen to call those squiggles inverted commas. This section provides some quick do's, some quick don'ts to improve your academic writing immediately. So let's start with the positives, the do's. 1. Write short sentences. The first truth of writing is that each sentence conveys one idea. Students get themselves into trouble with long sentences, so write strong topic sentences that start each paragraph. Focus on constructing paragraphs that are like a waterfall. They flow. I think students get into trouble when they write these impossibly long sentences and have no sense of how a paragraph is created. The key is to treat a sentence as a stepping stone. A quotation is certainly one of those stepping stones, and use them because they get you somewhere. 2. Make sure that your paraphrasing reduces the length of the original text. If students paraphrase an original statement from a researcher and it's longer than the original, then the student actually doesn't understand the original and they don't understand what paraphrasing is meant to do. So make sure your paraphrasing is tight, succinct and short. Paraphrasing should be shorter than the original statement. 3. Be confident in your abilities. I think one of the causes of plagiarism and collusion in particular is a lack of confidence in students. Students buy a paper or they buy a thesis from a paper mill, and this never ends, by the way, very well, because at a doctoral level, the thesis you buy will not be of examinable standard. And you won't get through the milestones of your candidature, which must show scaffolded written work to your thesis. But the reason students are desperate for help, which may be legal or otherwise, is because they're frightened of failure, because they doubt their abilities. So we have an array of support structures and professional development strategies available to help you today through your degree. So don't buy expertise, develop your own, and be confident in your abilities and be confident in what you can achieve. 4. Write clear topic sentences in your paragraphs. I think a great problem of and with quotations is the positioning of the quotation in the paragraph. The best way to frame quotations, paraphrasing and the research of others is to make sure that the topic sentence of your paragraphs is evocative. Now, just to clarify, if you've never heard the phrase topic sentence before, the topic sentence is the first sentence of every paragraph. And what happens is they form the spine of your argument. You show that you're able to read the first sentence of every paragraph and you gain a trajectory and a momentum for an argument. By the way, this is a really good way to draft your thesis. Read the first sentence of every paragraph in a chapter. Does the chapter make sense? It should. If this topic sentence is sharp, precise and powerful, then it eases the positioning of the quotation for you in the middle, in the meat of the paragraph. Remember, never start nor end a paragraph with a quotation. It must be embedded into the meat of your paragraph. And 5, never leave quotations to be self-standing sentences. The key to understanding the positioning of quotations and paraphrasing in your sentences, in your paragraphs, in your chapters, is to insert the quotation carefully into your prose. The number one priority to remember is the longer the paragraph, the more intricate the argument. Now, if I, as an examiner, see single sentence paragraphs, I know that the PhD student does not possess the scale of the interpretation and the knowledge required to complete a doctorate. The longer the paragraph, the better the analysis. Remember to introduce your quotations. Never present the quotation as a self-standing sentence like, use sentences like as Brabazon states, comma, and then the quotation. And then you follow that quotation, short quotation, with paraphrasing. And then you follow it with your interpretation. So as you can see, long paragraphs create a very strong interpretation. So let's now move to the don'ts. Don't be a lazy note taker. Some acts of plagiarism and academic misconduct are intentional. Some are not. Laziness is also a cause. So if students do not know how to take good notes, it's ignorance. If they're sloppy and they lack attention to detail, then that is laziness. Simple errors like not differentiating between a quotation and a paraphrase, not differentiating between your ideas and the ideas of others, can get you into real trouble. Note-taking is powerful, so treat it with respect and attention to detail. Next don't is avoid overquoting. Quoting is important. It demonstrates intellectual integrity. It demonstrates respect for knowledge and respect for the way in which some of the greatest scholars on the planet have expressed their ideas. So quoting matters, but overquoting is a problem. Overquoting is a sign of an underconfident student because the student remains wedded to already existing research rather than stretching to create their own interpretation. There is a structural rule that I use to solve this problem, and I ask that for every sentence of quotation that a student uses, that the student then writes 3 sentences in interpretation. So a 1 to 3 mix is very strong. To help you a bit more, let me break down those 3 sentences for you. So the first sentence paraphrases the quotation. The second sentence explains why the quotation is important, and the third sentence explains why the quotation is important for your research and your argument. So this is the 1 to 3 rule, and it means that you'll stop using those really, really long quotations, because if you do, think about how many sentences you're going to have to write. So always remember that you're using quotations to make your argument. You're using quotations as a scaffold. You're not simply restating the words of others because it's convenient. The next don't is don't dumb down your research. When all of us are reading difficult material, we become frightened and worried. But the key with reading the really tough stuff is to keep reading it. I remember the first time I read Althusser, I got about 25% of it, but I was inspired to such an extent that I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again. So don't reduce the level of your scholarship because the reading is tough. You are judged by the calibre of your reading. Examiners go to your bibliography. They go to your reading list first. And that's how I know if it's going to be a pass or a fail. I know, and your examiners know, what sort of scholar you are by the level of your reading. The next don't is don't rely on editors. Even though the Australian Council for Graduate Research has agreed to the use of editors in doctoral education, this is a pretty controversial issue. People are pretending it's not, but it is. Don't rely on an editor and think that an editor will get your thesis through. Just to be clear, I have never used an editor for any of my PhD students. I don't believe in it, but I have lost that battle. Please remember to learn good and effective writing skills, and you should be learning those from your supervisor. You should be learning how to write. You should be learning how to edit, and please only use an editor as your last resort. And here's our final don't. Don't confuse the how of the thesis with the why. Please remember, writing literature reviews, that's easy. Writing methods chapters, that's easy. The what and the how are straightforward, really easy. The why am I doing this thesis? Why now? Why does my scholarship matter? Yep, that's the tough stuff. So please make sure that you do not confuse the what, the how, and the why. The what and the how are easy. The why, that's how you pass the examination of a PhD.